First Contact and Intimidation. The Vega Collective had subjugated 23 star systems across the Orion Arm before they set their sights on Earth. Their method was brutally effective: broadcast the execution of a planet's leaders across all communication channels, demonstrating the futility of resistance. Fear was their most potent weapon, more devastating than their armada of biomechanical warships. Fleet Overseer Nixteral stood on the command deck of the Eternal Subjugation, the flagship of the Vega invasion force. His iridescent carapace reflected the ambient light as he gazed at the blue-green world through the viewscreen. Earth. So small, so insignificant, yet teeming with billions of potential servants for the collective. Begin the broadcast, Nixteral ordered, his mandibles clicking with anticipation. Let the humans witness their inevitable capitulation. The transmission infiltrated every electronic device on Earth simultaneously: smartphones, neural implants, holographic projectors, even antiquated television sets. The image showed 5 captured members of the United Earth Defense Council, bound in pulsating energy restraints. Their uniforms were torn, faces bruised, but their expressions remained defiant. General Olivia Jackson, commander of Earth's Orbital Defense Network, stared directly into the camera. Blood trickled from a cut above her right eye, but her gaze never wavered. "Remember Protocol Arcturus," she said calmly, just before a Vega executioner stepped into frame, weapon raised. The feed abruptly cut to black. What the Vega didn't understand was that humans had been studying them for decades. Earth had intercepted transmissions from previously conquered worlds, analyzed the collective's tactics, and prepared accordingly. Protocol Arcturus wasn't a surrender code, it was the activation signal for humanity's counterstrike. Deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, in a facility carved through solid rock, Dr. Eleanor Wright received the signal. The xenobiologist had devoted her life to understanding the Vega, their biology, their technology, their weaknesses. Now, her work would finally be put to the test. "They've made contact," she announced to the room of scientists and military personnel. General Jackson gave the signal. General Marcus Hayes nodded grimly. A veteran of Earth's covert space operations, Hayes had overseen the development and deployment of Project Chimera, Earth's hidden defense network. "Initiate Phase 1, he ordered. Throughout the solar system, installations that appeared dormant or civilian in nature suddenly awakened. On Europa, what the Vega had dismissed as ice mining operations revealed themselves as massive electromagnetic cannon emplacements. In the asteroid belt, seemingly ordinary mining vessels transformed, shedding their industrial exteriors to reveal sleek, advanced warships. On the Eternal Subjugation, Tactical Officer Vex Morith approached Overseer Nixteral, confusion evident in her compound eyes. "Overseer, we're detecting unusual energy signatures across the system," she reported. "The humans appear to be activating some kind of defense network." Nixteral clicked his mandibles dismissively. "Impossible. Our intelligence indicated they had nothing that could threaten a harvester drone, let alone our battleships." "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from multiple locations simultaneously." On the view screen appeared a human woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked black hair and penetrating green eyes. Gar. Eleanor Wright had never intended to become the face of humanity's resistance, but as the leading expert on Vega biology and technology, she understood them better than anyone. "Vega Collective," she began, "we've been expecting you. For 30 years, we've studied your broadcasts, your tactics, your biology. We know about the crystalline structures in your neural pathways that make you susceptible to targeted ultrasonic frequencies." Nixteral's mandibles twitched involuntarily. How could the humans know about that evolutionary quirk? It was the Collective's most closely guarded secret. "We know about the regenerative limitations of your bioships," Wright continued. "We know they can't repair damage to their central nodes without returning to your spawning pools. We know everything." On cue, the Europa cannons fired their first salvo. The hypervelocity projectiles, designed specifically to penetrate Vega bioarmor, tore through two support vessels. The ships didn't explode, they simply shuddered and went dark, their biological components instantly neutralized. Return fire. Nixteral roared, but his gunners had no clear targets. The Europa facilities were buried beneath kilometers of ice, and the asteroid belt warships were executing evasive maneuvers that seemed impossibly precise, as if they knew the Vega targeting algorithms. In the Martian underground colony of Olympus, General Hayes monitored the battle from the command center. What had appeared to be a civilian research outpost was actually Earth's forward military headquarters, established specifically to coordinate the defense against the Vega. Launch the drone swarms, Hayes ordered. From concealed silos across Mars' surface, thousands of small autonomous craft burst forth, accelerating toward the Vega fleet at speeds that defied conventional propulsion physics. These weren't ordinary drones. Each carried a modified version of the Vega's own neural disruptor technology, reverse-engineered from debris collected from their previous conquests. The humans hadn't just studied the Vega, they had weaponized the collective's own technology against them. On the eternal subjugation, alarms blared as sensors detected the approaching swarm. "What are those?" Nixteral demanded. "Unknown craft, approaching at, that's impossible," the tactical officer stammered. "They're moving faster than our interceptors." The drones swarmed the Vega vessels, attaching to their biomechanical hulls. Rather than exploding or firing weapons, they began emitting precisely calibrated ultrasonic pulses that targeted the crystalline structures in the Vega neural pathways, the same pathways that connected the crew to their living ships. Across the Vega fleet, crew members collapsed, their nervous systems overwhelmed by excruciating pain. The bioships themselves began to convulse, the symbiotic relationship between vessel and crew now a shared agony. Nixteral fought to remain conscious as the pain lanced through his carapace. "How?" he managed to gasp. "How did they know?" The answer came from Dr. Wright, still visible on the view screen, her expression not triumphant but resolute. "We learned from those you conquered. The survivors who escaped your purges found their way to us. They told us everything. For decades, Earth had secretly harbored refugees from worlds the Vega had attacked, integrating their knowledge and technologies into humanity's defense preparations. What the collective had thought was a primitive, isolated world was actually the nexus of a carefully concealed alliance. This was never going to be another conquest for you," Wright continued. "This was always going to be where your expansion ended." From Jupiter's moons, massive rail guns began firing, launching specialized EMP warheads designed to disrupt the Vega's bioelectrical systems without harming their organic components. Earth didn't want to exterminate the Vega, they wanted to disable them, to demonstrate that coexistence was possible, even necessary. As his flagship systems failed around him, Nixteral opened an emergency channel to the Vega homeworld. For the first time in the collective's history, they would have to report not victory, but defeat. The humans had done what no other species had managed, they had prepared, they had innovated, and they had prevailed. In the Himalayan facility, Dr. Wright watched the battle unfold with a mixture of relief and apprehension. Phase 1 had been successful beyond their most optimistic projections, but this was just the beginning. The Vega would return, perhaps with a larger force, perhaps with new tactics. "They're retreating," General Hayes reported from Mars. "The remaining ships are pulling back beyond Neptune's orbit." Wright nodded slowly. "Good. Now we move to Phase 2. Because Protocol Arcturus wasn't just about defense. It was about changing the galactic paradigm. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation, willing or otherwise, was about to begin. Humanity's response and victory. Aboard the retreating Vega flagship Eternal Subjugation, Overseer Nixteral struggled to comprehend their failure. Emergency bioregeneration protocols had stabilized his neural pathways, but the damage to his pride was irreparable. 3 of their most formidable vessels had been completely disabled, and 5 more were limping away with severe damage to their organic components. "How is this possible?" he demanded, his mandibles clicking furiously. "These humans were supposed to be primitive. Our intelligence network assured us they had barely mastered interplanetary travel." Science Director Zurovex approached cautiously, her translucent exoskeleton pulsing with stress hormones. "Overseer, I've analyzed the human counterattack. They didn't just get lucky, they knew exactly where to strike us. The ultrasonic frequencies, the bioelectrical disruptors. They targeted our specific vulnerabilities with surgical precision." The realization dawned on Nixteral with horrifying clarity. "They've been studying us. For how long?" "Based on the sophistication of their countermeasures, would estimate at least 3 decades, Zurovex replied. "They must have intercepted our broadcasts from previous conquests." The Vega's strategy had always relied on the psychological impact of their initial broadcast, showing the execution of a planet's leaders to break the will of its population. But humans had turned this tactic against them, using these very broadcasts to study Vega biology, technology, and battle strategies. "The prisoners," Nixteral suddenly remembered. "Where are the human leaders we captured?" In the detention block, the guards made a disturbing discovery. The cells were empty, with no signs of forced entry or escape. General Olivia Jackson and the other Earth Defense Council members had simply vanished. Meanwhile, on Phobos, the larger of Mars' 2 moons, Admiral James Donovan watched the Vega retreat with grim satisfaction. A former deep space explorer turned military strategist, Donovan had been instrumental in establishing humanity's hidden defense network throughout the solar system. Phase 1 complete, he reported to the gathered officers in the command center carved deep into the Martian moon. "The Vega are falling back beyond Neptune, but they're regrouping, not retreating fully. They'll be back with reinforcements." The holographic display showed the positions of Earth's forces throughout the system, visible now that secrecy was no longer necessary. Centuries of appearing technologically stunted had been a deliberate strategy. While publicly focusing on climate restoration and terrestrial conflicts, humanity had secretly poured resources into advanced defense systems, hidden bases, and revolutionary propulsion technology. "Activate the Lazarus Protocol," Donovan ordered. "It's time to wake the sleepers." Throughout the solar system, cryogenic facilities hidden within asteroids, beneath planetary surfaces, and inside hollowed-out moons hummed to life. Within them were Earth's greatest military minds from the past 3 decades, officially retired or deceased, but actually preserved to lead humanity in this exact scenario. Simultaneously, on Earth, Dr. Eleanor Wright initiated the next phase of Protocol Arcturus. In orbital shipyards disguised as space junk, advanced warships that had been constructed in modular sections over decades began final assembly. "The Vega don't understand human psychology," Wright explained to General Hayes during their secure communication. "They expect fear to paralyze us. They don't realize it can also galvanize us." Because humanity had done more than prepare defensive measures. They had created contingency plans for taking the fight directly to the Vega Collective if necessary. 2 days later, the Vega returned with reinforcements, a fleet 3 times larger than their initial force. But this time, Earth was ready not just to defend, but to counterattack. Admiral Donovan stood on the bridge of the Defiance, humanity's first true battleship. Hidden in Neptune's shadow, it represented the pinnacle of combined human and refugee alien technology. "They're proceeding exactly as predicted," his tactical officer, Commander Juno Bishop, reported. "Their formation suggests they plan to overwhelm our outer defenses through sheer numbers." Donovan nodded. Typical Vega tactics. No adaptation, no innovation. Just brute force application of what worked before. He activated the ship-wide communication system. "All vessels, this is Admiral Donovan. Execute Operation Hydra. Across the solar system, Earth's hidden fleet emerged from concealment. From Jupiter's radiation belts, stealth destroyers equipped with gravity manipulation technology moved into attack position. From Venus's cloud cover, atmospheric fighters designed to operate in extreme conditions deployed in perfect formation. The Vega were expecting to face the same defensive measures as before. Instead, they encountered an entirely new strategy. Earth's ships executed maneuvers that seemed to defy physics, using localized gravity distortion to change direction instantaneously. Aboard the Vega command ship, now named Inevitable Retribution, Overseer Nixteral watched in growing horror as his carefully orchestrated attack disintegrated into chaos. "They're using gravity weapons," Tactical Officer Vex Morith exclaimed. "Our ships can't maintain formation." The Vega had always relied on overwhelming force and psychological warfare. They had never needed to innovate tactically because their standard approach had always succeeded. Now, faced with an enemy who had studied them for decades and prepared accordingly, they found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned. From her command post in the Himalayan facility, Dr. Wright monitored the battle while coordinating with the Freed Earth Defense Council members, who had never actually been captured. The Vega had taken carefully prepared decoys, biosynthetic duplicates programmed to deliver the Protocol Arcturus activation phrase before their execution. "They're attempting to regroup near Titan," she observed. "Admiral Donovan, they're vulnerable to a flanking maneuver." Donovan acknowledged and redirected a squadron of ships hidden within Saturn's rings. The Vega never saw them coming. As the battle raged across the outer solar system, General Hayes led the ground defense preparations on Earth. If any Vega forces managed to break through, they would face a population trained and ready to resist. Every major city had underground shelters that doubled as defensive fortifications. What appeared to be ordinary civilian infrastructure could transform into weapon emplacements within minutes. But such measures proved unnecessary. The Vega fleet, faced with unexpected resistance and innovative tactics, began to fragment. Some ships attempted to retreat, while others pressed the attack with increasing desperation. Admiral Donovan recognized the opportunity. "All ships, focus fire on the Inevitable Retribution." Tactical Pattern Omega. Earth's fleet converged on the Vega flagship from multiple vectors, utilizing the precise weaknesses Dr. Wright's research had identified. Specialized weapons targeted the biomechanical junction points where the living components of the ship integrated with their technology. On the Inevitable Retribution's bridge, systems failed cascadingly as the ship's biological components went into shock. "We must retreat," Science Director Zuravex implored. "We cannot win this battle." But Overseer Nixteral refused to accept defeat. "The collective has never failed. We will." His declaration was cut short as a direct hit severed the neural connection between the command crew and their vessel. The massive ship drifted powerless, its biological systems shutting down one by one. Admiral Donovan opened a communication channel to the disabled flagship. "Vega Collective, this is Admiral James Donovan of Earth's Defense Fleet. Your invasion has failed. You have two options, surrender or retreat. Either way, the human solar system is now closed to you." After a tense silence, a response came not from Nixteral but from Zuravex, who had assumed command after the Overseer's incapacitation. "We will withdraw," she transmitted, her voice betraying both fear and confusion. "The collective has never encountered resistance like this." "Then learn from it," Donovan replied. "Because if you return, you'll find us even better prepared. We don't seek conflict with the Vega, but we will not submit to conquest." As the remaining Vega ships limped away, humanity celebrated their first victory as a unified, spacefaring civilization. For decades, they had maintained the appearance of division and technological limitation, all while preparing for this moment. In the aftermath, Dr. Eleanor Wright and her team of xenobiologists began studying the captured Vega technology and the few prisoners who had been taken. Their goal wasn't vengeance but understanding, perhaps even eventual cooperation. "They've conquered so many worlds because no one was prepared," she explained during the post-victory briefing. Each civilization they encountered faced them in isolation, without the benefit of knowing what had happened elsewhere. General Hayes nodded thoughtfully. "And now? Now we have an opportunity to change the paradigm," Wright replied. "We've proven that the Vega aren't invincible. We can share this knowledge with other civilizations, create a network of mutual defense." Admiral Donovan, joining via holographic projection from the Defiance, agreed. "The Vega succeeded through isolation and fear. We'll counter with cooperation and knowledge." Humanity had entered the galactic stage not as conquerors, nor as victims, but as defenders, protectors willing to stand against tyranny. The message they sent back through captured Vega communication channels to other subjugated worlds was simple but powerful. "You are not alone. Resistance is not futile. We stand with you." Across 23 star systems, beings who had lived under Vega dominion for generations received this message with newfound hope. The collective's grip had been broken. A new era was beginning. On Earth, as reconstruction began and previously hidden technologies were gradually revealed to the general population, Dr. Wright looked to the stars with a mixture of caution and optimism. The Vega would return eventually, perhaps with new tactics, perhaps with a different approach entirely. But humanity would be ready. And next time, they wouldn't stand alone.